What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our ACC football channel.
It wasn't pretty, but maybe it's a measuring stick for the U to look back on where they need to improve and move on from here. And the season is still young, and there's much to accomplish. Here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, talking up Miami. We got the Holsum One to take your comments, your questions, your debate topics. Holsum One, how you doing today?
It's a tough one, man. We're licking our wounds. A lot of us, including me, was very confident, especially after what we did to Tallahassee, moving forward with our program. And unfortunately, we ran into a true program. We ran into an organization, basically. We ran into a buzzsaw, whatever you want to call it. We ran into the Clemson Tigers. And, I said last week when I was on here, I'd be here no matter what the outcome of this game was. And here I am. But the Miami Hurricanes have 7 games left for this season. And if you want to talk about the new Miami, anything different from what we've done in the last decade, when we do have a tough loss, you cannot follow that up with other losses. I mean, you play the number 1 team in the country, and you need to take whatever from that game, but move forward for the rest of the season. And once we can do that, I think we really have started to build a great foundation for this team.
Every week, every game's a learning experience for the fans, for the people that evaluate the team to see where the team stands. And you make a great point that we consider this a measuring stick. When you play number 1 in the country, okay, how close are you to number 1? But it's even more important after that to say, okay, in the past, there have been big wins, and then they were followed most recently in 2017 with crushing defeats that ruined a season that was at 10-0 after beating 2 top 10 teams back-to-back weeks at home in Virginia Tech and Notre Dame. So what is going to be the mark of this team? That it takes a hit from this and feels bad about itself, or that it sees this as, okay, we see where we need to improve. Let's get to work. Let's get it done, and let's not look past anybody else. And let's go to work. And because the Pitt team that they play this week is certainly not a great team, but certainly a capable team. That's a tough team and a tough defensive-minded team and a run game-oriented team that could present a pretty big challenge.
Absolutely, Mark. And the tall tale of this sport really comes down to, everyone across college football, especially now in the 2020s, there's athletes that have been, now we're reaping the benefits of, football university that started like in 2010, 2011, when they started really teaching these young players at like 8, 9, 10 years old across the country, the foundations of football. And so we're reaping the benefits of having across the country really quality football being played. And the biggest difference is the level of coaching matched up with talent. You got some teams who have really good coaches, they do pretty well for where they are, but they don't have a good recruiting band. And so you have your Pittsburgh, sometimes your Penn States, things like that, where they have really good coaches. They're very detail-oriented teams. They know exactly what you're going to do. They rally to the football. They catch the football. They run routes at the sticks, all the little things. But then you run into a nice mesh of the upper echelons at your Bamas, even your Wisconsin, sometimes your Notre Dames, to where it's quality coaching and athletes. And we saw that on Saturday when it came to Clemson. At the end of the day, you got to take that game. You take some of the good that we did, and it was very few, but it was some pretty young guys that stood out. You look at Sam Brooks, our inside linebacker, someone who there was a lot of hype behind him, and some people pushed back on it because of said hype, but we see he is still the best linebacker on this team. It's just there. No matter who we play, no matter when he has his time to show up, he makes his plays. Now, there's been coming out about his ankle injury or foot injury, so that's why he isn't probably a starter. But we can definitely say that his snap count will go up moving forward. And any of the bye week issues, or that's 0-4 off of bye weeks under Coach Manny Diaz. But man, you see what it looks like. You see what you want to be. But you go up against a program that's been together, a staff that's been together for 8 to 12 years. They've laid a foundation, and they're just on a different tier. And you can't overanalyze this game. You can't overtake everything and say, oh, we just absolutely suck and we should just give up and mail in the season. No, there's no need to do all of that. No need to overreact. Like I said on Twitter, Mark, disappointed? Yes. Angry? Yes. But overreact? Nah. 7 games left for the season. And not only do I have that mindset, I believe this staff and these players have that mindset.
Because you look at any college football season, look at last year, 130 teams in the FBS, 3 made it through the regular season undefeated. Only 1 team made it undefeated the entire way, of course. And there are teams with 1 loss that make the college football playoff every year. Actually, most of them. Teams with 2 and 3 losses compete for conference championships. So the season is not over by any stretch. And let me lay out a few things for you to get your reaction on. One would be that, as I stated to you, I think a number of times as we led into this game, the reasons I felt more confident in Miami staying in the game, I picked Clemson to win, but that we would enter the 4th quarter with a game on our hands, like a 10-point game, is that improved quarterback play, a kicker that's going to not kill you in the red zone, that's going to make all the kicks that need to be made, and actually, will reach the goalpost from inside 50 yards and beyond. And those are points that have been left on the field in the past that he'll pick up when given the opportunity. It didn't arise against Clemson. Red Lashley's play calling and the improved tempo and the setup of the plays that I'd seen in the previous games. And number 4, that they just didn't mess around with Louisville and Florida State, that they stomped on them where maybe previous Miami teams would have coasted to a win by 13 or 14 points when they really should have taken them out. And they did that to Louisville and Florida State. There were basically 3 responses, I would say, in doing post-game that I received from the fans in regards to why Miami lost. One was that opinion that you kind of alluded to just a second ago in regards to, we're horrible, we suck, they're in a different league, we got just outplayed, I never saw this coming, why are our athletes not living up to theirs? Number 2 was coaching. We've got just as much talent, we got just as good a team. They took us to school, Venables and Dabo, their coaching staff, they've been around forever, been working together forever, they just schooled us. And number 3, there was a huge blame by certain people on the officiating with the 15 or the 13 penalties and those hurting at certain times.
Wow. We'll start out with the last one. So, yes, the Miami Hurricanes have 15 penalties for 135 yards. You cannot, when you go up against the King, you can't miss. You cannot miss. And there were times when we were offsides on an interception. There were times when we're roughing the passer, unnecessary roughness. Thank God we blocked one of the field goals because there was a penalty for it, roughing the kicker. But since the ball was tipped, they had to pick it up. Plenty of false starts, holding, illegal formations. I mean, all of the things that when Bobby Durkins was on my channel said that we would show up unprofessional. He wasn't nervous because we would not be focused. We wouldn't. The only thing that would change his mind is if the Miami Hurricanes showed up focused and intense and ready to go. That's all we saw was that it wasn't that. It was not focused. It was not detailed by any means. Defensively, we looked pretty good. But offensively, that was probably some of the worst stuff, man. And it's hard for me to go back and do my film reviews, but I had to do it. It's hard to rewatch it. But in that time that you are rewatching, you see, what's up, Jordan Bowman? You see a lot of things that flashed. I mean, I've been talking about Bubba Bolden. I've been screaming and banging on the door for Bubba Bolden and Nesta Silvera since maybe February-ish, January, February-ish. The third person in that trio that I talk about is Mark Pope. He's still yet to show anything. But Bubba Bolden and Nasty Nesta have showed up. And there was even some individual plays by Nesta as an interior defensive lineman that I think he probably got some NFL nods from. But Bubba Bolden, I mean, the shot at him going off on the sideline with the nose bleeding after blocking that kick. I mean, it might be one of those. If we ever were to do a U Part 3, it'll definitely be on there. I mean, people, it's a nice gift that's been going around since that game. He's probably got a lot of new fans from the way that he played this game and how he's been playing throughout the season, Mark. But, I think the penalties was a big thing, yes. Now you talk about us just absolutely sucking. I think that's just a reaction to how embarrassing it was. That's what we all kind of put our hats on, that it would be a game, that, this team would be in the fight, swinging back and forth. And I feel like it could have been 10 times worse if Coach Blake Baker and his defense didn't hold on as long as they possibly could. And I've been critical of him every time. He was my biggest issue, but he was the only coordinator that showed up on Saturday. If the game was 21-10, about 6 minutes into the third quarter, you give that team, that defense, 7 actual points early. So if it's 17-21, you don't know how it's played out. Who knows the way that we come out? But eventually we were going to break. I mean, they played so many 90 snaps, 90 defensive snaps. That's not only going to affect us in that game, but moving forward, because you start the wear and tear on a team early. Thought it was coming off of a bye, but man, it was ugly. It was ugly. The other person who I really thought was going to show up was Coach Rick Lashley, and he didn't. And whatever connection or miscommunication was going on between him and De'Aaron King in the pass protection, or De'Aaron King not having the ability to make any audibles at the line of scrimmage. I mean, it was literally to the point they walked up to the line of scrimmage and said, "We are blitzing you, and we are letting them play press man coverage. Force us to get out of this." And we never did, Mark. Not once. All these other games, we would go 4 wide and open up the box, then run. Nope. We bunched it up, 22 personnel, ran dive right into a 7-8 man box. It was bad. Am I giving up on my Kings? No. But I feel like that game plan on Saturday was atrocious, and really made everybody with NFL aspirations on offense. I don't know. Even, your Brevin Jordans, nothing. Mark Pope, nothing. Our leading receptor was Mike Harley, 3 receptions for 13 yards. It was bad. Just a bad offense again.
So, the focus goes to the quarterback first and foremost. And you talked about De'Aaron King's lack of time in the pocket at times. Also, the miscommunication or the lack of preparation in countering and getting out of certain play calls because of the defensive look. If we just had an ISO on the line of scrimmage and we cleared out everything else, and we just watched Clemson's offensive line against Miami's D line and vice versa, do you think we would get a pretty good indication of how this game went? Because I do. I think that the game was won by Clemson at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball.
I agree. It's just, I mean, their D-line versus our O-line isn't even up for discussion. But our defensive line, I think we did make some plays, but not nearly enough. And I could definitely agree with them wholesale kicking our butt on one side. The other side, I think we put up a fight, but still didn't make enough plays as far as our D-line versus their O-line. But you are correct. They won the line of scrimmage.
It's not very often that you face a quarterback 4 times, but that's going to be the deal when Pitt comes to town. And Kenny Pickett, of course, he was the one that got his first career start It was coming off a Virginia Tech game in which he was forced into action because of an injury the week before, and he played really well against Virginia Tech in Blacksburg the week before. Then he comes in as a first full-time starter for the first time as a freshman at Heinz Field, of course, against 10-0 Miami, and that's the first time you and anybody else, we got a look at Kenny Pickett, and he was a really good game manager in that game. He moved around just enough, made the throws, didn't light it up for 400 yards, but made the throws. And ever since, he's been the Pitt starting quarterback. So once again, after Miami's beaten him a couple times, he comes back to Miami for a fourth go-around. And, you know, I saw it in the chat here, and I get it maybe from a talent standpoint that somebody mentioned, okay, now that we got Clemson out of the way, North Carolina is the only game we need to worry about. Yeah.
You know, Mark, I think a lot of us content providers have tried to, and fans are going to be fans. I mean, even I am just a fan at this point when it comes to the University of Miami. But we've tried to really control that narrative that every single week is important, man. It's no way to continue to allow that type of mindset to creep in. We are no longer that team that every week it just didn't depend. The only team we had to ever worry about was Tallahassee. That's gone. And it's going to take a while to get that filtered out of our fan base. It's going to take a while because those same folks, Mark, will turn around if we do lose and say, fire everybody, bench everybody, just the extremists. And I think another thing, including myself, is once we saw how dynamic and explosive we could be against a rival team, we felt like we were finally firing and we were finally able to do it. And it just fell right on its face on national TV. It embarrassed the school, embarrassed the program, and it's embarrassed the city. That was atrocious. But like I said, it's time to move on. It's gone. It's behind us. And Pittsburgh is a quality team that, for as long as we've been in the ACC, has always given us problems. So it's not like we're just going to line up and go 5 wide and make it into a track meet and beat them by 45 points. And if we do, hey, that's cool. But do I see that happening moving forward? No. They're going to show up. They're going to play good defense. Their defensive line, a couple of their defensive starters could play at Clemson. Okay, I think one of their defensive ends leads the country in sacks, if I believe. He's one of the better defensive ends, edge rushers in the country. Okay, so it's no way for us to start to feel like that. I even saw on Twitter some people were saying this Pitt team lost to Boston College. Why should we be worried? And that's the problem. The fact that we continue to think that what happened last week has anything to do with the next week. Because if you look at the week before, you think, oh, yeah, Miami's going to show up and kick butt in this game. And you would think Virginia, the way Virginia played Clemson, that Clemson's in trouble. We all fell for that, me included. So the week before, 2 weeks before, has nothing to do with what's going to happen on that Saturday. You got to show up and have a great game plan for that 60 minutes.
Yeah, whether it be Pitt or Boston College, if we lined them up across the board, the entire roster, and had to run 40-yard dashes against Miami's roster, yeah, we could definitely see a difference. If we looked at the recruiting rankings, we can see a difference. But those teams make up for it in different ways, and they are quality teams. They're not great teams. They're like top 40-ish type teams, but they're certainly capable. Pitt lost to Boston College last week, 31-30, on a missed extra point in overtime. And yeah, Boston College is not great, but Boston College has a transfer quarterback from Notre Dame who is really good. He is really good, Phil Jerkovich. And, Boston College is a quality team with a good coaching staff. Pitt, the player you're referring to, Patrick Jones, 7 sacks. And Pitt's a team that's 3-2. They are that close to being 5-0. They lost on the extra point in overtime, and they lost the week before a heartbreaker against NC State on a last-second field goal, 30-27. So that's where they stand this season.